to understand at the outset is that the bone sets the tone, but the tissue is the issue. So we need to understand that where and how to preserve the tissue, how well can I manage the tissue is the most important concern as of now. So when we talk about the bone surgeries in implant dentistry, there are conventional methods and there are contemporary methods. So what we see in the conventional methods are the traditional bone cutting burrs, the saws, chisels, the sharp cutting instruments. And when we talk about the contemporary part, we understand the utilization of an ultrasonic piezoelectric surgical unit. What we need to understand at the outset is that the conventional methods do not differentiate between the bone and soft tissue. So if I'm using my burr or if I'm using a saw tip, I'm going to cut the bone as well as the soft tissue, whatever comes in the way of my surgery. But when we go ahead and start using piezo surgery, I know that it is going to be safe to my soft tissues, it is going to be safe to the nerve, it is safe to the Schneiderian membrane, and that is why we have been routinely using it in our practice for so many years now. Important criteria is the temperature when you're doing a bone surgery. We all understand that bone can withstand a temperature of only 47 degrees Celsius. Above this temperature, the bone gets necrosed. That means whenever I'm trying to trim bone, I'm trying to cut bone, it is very important that I utilize something which does not cause bone resorption, which does not cause bone necrosis, right? And which has got a coolant effect of a very high value. So when we see our articles, the old articles which have been written, we see that the Brennemark and all his peers worked using micromotors. And when they worked using micromotors, they came to a conclusion that adequate irrigation is required at all times during drilling inside the bone. So a couple of review, when I did the review, I found that the heat generation is a very, very important topic. And piezo surgery manages it quite well. We are going to discuss it in a while. So when we talk about specifically the areas of compact bone, we need to understand that the compact dense bone is that area where you would require a lot of pressure, you would require excess cooling when you're trying to drill. So compact bone as well as the spongy bone is a perfect area to utilize piezo surgery. Talking about a few indications of piezo surgery, we have bone harvesting as in block bone grafts for Khuri techniques for augmentation. We have ridge expansion procedures, endodontic surgeries, periodontal surgeries, nerve decompression, removal of the cyst, of course, dental extractions and impactions, sinus augmentation, as well as dental implant placement. So this is the unit we are going to talk about, which I usually use. I have been using for more than a couple of years now, with an array of tips, which we'll be slowly understanding as to which tip is indicated in what kind of areas. So these are the different power modes of the piezo system. What we majorly use are the bone modes, wherein the density is classified very well, and in the new unit, it is much better because you have a touchscreen panel and you can use that to change the modes. Without wasting a lot of time, we are going to first talk about a case. I will show you a few piezoelectric tips on that. And then we are going to have a detailed discussion on the indications of different tips. So when we talk about a direct sinus augmentation procedure, a simple basic case where you can see a resorbed maxilla, we can see very less amount of bone present below the sinus floor. So that automatically requires augmentation of this area using bone substitute materials. Completely edentulous arch. So the first step is to raise a neat and clean flap, which is going to be a full thickness flap, trapezoidal incision, because I want my site to be absolutely clear because I'm going to make a window out here. So the first tip which I'm going to use is a Woodpecker UL3 tip. So when we use a UL3 tip, what you can see here on the tip is that we have a diamond which is coated all over. And when you have diamond, what we understand is that this is not going to cut our tissue. So all of us have used our aeroter burrs, and when we use our aeroter burrs for doing a subgingival crown preparation or a tooth preparation, we understand that when you do a subgingival preparation, even though your aeroter is working at 2.5, 3 lakh RPM, it does not damage the tissue. So that is because the diamond on the tip will not damage your tissue. That is what we are going to use here. The tips are made up of diamond. And when you see how do you create a window, this is an outline of the window, which you can see slightly. We are creating an outline with the piezo surgical tip. And slowly, when you go ahead and do your trimming of the bone, this is what you see. You can see small gray areas. You can see blood in all these areas. This grayish lining, the grayish membrane which you see here, is the Schneiderian membrane. This is what we are going to lift up. This is called as the Schneiderian membrane, and we are going to create space for putting in some part of bone substitute here. So this is how you move the tip of your piezo unit. You can see the handpiece with an LED light so that the area is completely lighted up. Another important thing which you see here is that there is no force application in the entire procedure, right? We are not applying any force. So when we are not applying any force, it is very important to see that there is no force which is being applied. So it is very important to understand that if you're not applying any force on the tissue here, the chances of tearing the membrane is very, very low. And once you have done the detaching, we are trying to just push in and see whether we have cleared all the bone from the window. I can see on the mesial aspect, the superior mesial aspect, there is still a small tag of bone which is attached. I'm going to remove that now. And this is how the entire membrane is lifted. You can see a huge lift here. We have made a big window so that the access to the bone graft is not difficult. And you can see when we ask the patient to do a Valsalva maneuver, the patient is breathing in and out, and you can see the sinus membrane moving here. You ask the patient to breathe in and breathe out, and you can see how the entire window along with the bony structure is clearly moving in and out. So if you have any air bubbles coming out, so those air bubbles would indicate that there is a minor perforation in the membrane. So when I'm using a burr, a carbide burr, or with my straight handpiece, it is very difficult to delineate between the soft and the hard tissue part. So that is the reason we use a piezo with diamond tip, so that you do not damage the membrane at all. So this is how it gets lifted up. And then you go ahead and use your hand instruments. I will show you in another case where we are going to use different tips and limit the use of hand instrument, because when you're using a hand instrument to elevate the floor, usually, the force is not under your control. But when you're using an ultrasonic instrument, you can easily control the amount of force which is applied here. So we make some PRF plugs because we are going to use a sandwich type of a technique with a xenograft. And we pack in the first layer of PRF, load this up with a layer of xenograft, and then you place another layer of PRF membrane. right? So this is how we are going to go about the entire procedure. Going to close the site now by putting up a membrane. And this is how you put up your membrane over the entire site. We are not placing an implant because the residual bone is very, very less here. And you do your final closure using a polyamide suture. We always use a monofilament suture whenever we are doing an augmentation of this sort. Right. So this is a basic outline of the structure of how do you use a piezo unit for a simple, a complicated case becomes a simple one once you use correct armamentarium. So the different advantages of piezo surgery are that it protects the soft tissue, nerves, vessels, and membranes in when we talk about sinus. It is minimally invasive, decreased post-operative discomfort, precision because it is very sharp. You get a precise cut. You do not have to apply pressure because when you apply pressure, it is at that time, when your precision goes out of the way. Reduces damages to your bone cells because eventually whatever we are going to create is for placing an implant. We require active blood cells there. So it reduces the damage to osteocytes, decreases the temperature at the point of surgery. Cavitation effect, we're going to talk about it when you have a huge amount of spray coming in up to around 60 milliliters or more per minute. It reduces the amount of blood in the field. So it becomes easy for the operator to operate. The vibrations can definitely be adjusted according to the density of the bone. So this is how a cavitation effect looks. So when you see this cavitation effect, you can see the amount of droplets. So this helps in two ways. One is by creating hemostasis, and the second one is by fragmenting the walls of bacterial cells. Right? So the aerosol function of the coolant helps in dispersing the blood from surgical field. Now, when you see on the different types of tips which are available, so there are very different types of tips. One is a cutting tip, a smoothing tip, and a non-cutting tip. The one you see here on the image is a cutting tip, right? Because this has got saw blades at the end, and this is going to cut the bone. So this is called as a US1 tip. So when we talk about a US1 tip, they are used for extractions. You can see the shape of the tip. It is used for block bone harvesting and for deeper bone sections because these US1 and a US2 tip are tips with markings. So you can see different depth markings here. So these depth markings which you see here are used very effectively in a ridge split procedure or a block graft procedure. It is also very commonly used for corticotomy in distraction osteogenesis. Coming on to the US3 tip, this is a sharp tip, extremely precise. You can see at the angles, very thin tip, which is again used for the interdental bone cutting and for ridge split procedures. US4 tip is used for osteoplasty. If you can see the tip carefully, you can see a small end here, which is a sharp end, which is instrumental in using, in removing the cyst, enucleating the entire cyst with the bony walls. So there would be no fragments which are left when you are using a US4 tips. It is also used to harvest or to scrape off bone in cases where you do not require a huge bone graft, where you can use this to take off bone and add it to a mixture of your any other xeno or allo graft. US5 tip is a broad tip, same as US4, majorly used for shuffling the bone around the periodontal surgeries for remodeling. Two tips are available with the set which are at an angle, right? So you have a right angled tip and a left angled tip. So these angled tips are of extremely, they're extremely good to be used in posterior maxilla and mandible because of their curvature. Plus, they have a micro saw, which is a 0.5 millimeter tip. So it will give you a very precise cut. This is how a right angle tip looks. We already seen the left angle one. Then you have tips for extraction, which is a UC1 tip, a sharp tip, also used for periodontal surgeries, for hemisections, ankylosed teeth removal. What is important to notice here is that the width is 1.4 millimeters only, right? So this will not cause any damage to the adjacent tooth or the adjacent tissues. Another tip which you have for your implant placement as well as for your indirect sinus augmentation procedure, you have tips with different diameters starting from 2 millimeters. So you can use your piezo alone to do the entire osteotomy. It is going to be slow and it is not going to damage any bone cells. You have bone markings, the depth as 3, 5, 7, and 9 millimeters. Now we are coming on to the sinus augmentation tips. So you have a UL1 tip, which is having a non-cutting end, and it is used to lift up the sinus membrane. You can see the shape, the angulation is at 30 degrees. So you can easily insert it into the window and it will be, you will be able to lift up the sinus membrane. An elephant foot tip, which is very, very instrumental when you are separating the sinus membrane from the bony walls. So I will show you a case where we have used all these tips to indicate as to how they are clinically applicable. The only important point you need to remember with an UL2 tip is that you do not insert it deep. It is to be used in the range of 2 millimeters only around the bone. This is the tip which you have seen already. This is a diamond coated tip. One of my favorite tips to be used when I'm close to the nerve or I'm close to the sinus membrane. So if you are starting it up with a saw tip, your sinus window, as soon as you see gray lining, you can shift on to your UL3 tip because it is going to be very safe when you are cutting near the soft tissue. Similarly, you have a diamond coated tip, which is in rectangular shape, used in areas where you're doing a ridge split procedure, the nerve is closed, or you're doing a sinus augmentation procedure and the membrane is closed. A 90-degree tip here. The 90-degree tip is a UL5 tip, which has got a bend at 90 degrees and helps in the separation of the sinus membrane from bone. So we have seen a few tips. What we are going to see now is a ridge split procedure. We have already discussed one case of a direct sinus augmentation. So I'm going to discuss with you a case of a posterior ridge split. So when you see a site like this, what we understand here is that the amount of bone you can see here at the crest is around 4.5 millimeters, right? So if I have good length here, which is almost around 13.5, 14 millimeters. So if I have a good amount of length and the width is less, these cases are supposed to be, the ideal cases for doing a ridge split procedure. This is maxilla, the bone is soft. I can easily try to split the labial and palatal plates. And where you have 4 millimeters of bone at the crest, I will be able to place a 4 millimeter implant. That means when I'm trying to split the entire area, it is going to be, I can push the plates to 1 millimeter each on the other sides. So this is the clinical view. When you raise a full thickness flap, you can see a small burnt part here, which is there was a small arterial bleeder. So when you see here on the ridge, you understand that the width of bone is not that great. So what we are going to do is I'm starting with my US2 tip, and I'm going to use this tip for creating a vertical cut up to 10 and a half, 11 millimeters, because I intend to place an implant of 4 by 10 at least in this area. So we are going to use our tip here to do the and you can see how clear the area is because of the amount of saline which is flowing in. So it is very good to see that you have a bloodless field, and I'm using a hemisection tip to go deeper and cut off the bone trabeculae so that I can split the bone. So this is a hemisection tip. We go into the full depth when we are using this. Here is where we are checking the depth with the probe, whether I need to do any more vertical preparation, and also to check whether my probe can slide in easily from distal to the mesial end of my cut.
Yeah.
So this is how you can put your probe, and we are just moving it from distal to mesial and mesial to distal to check the depth, as well as to see if there are any trabeculae we need to further go ahead and do a more split. Now, in this case of maxilla, since the bone is soft, we don't need any vertical cuts here. Only a horizontal cut onto full depth would be sufficient. So this is how we start our osteotomies. And when you see the implant insertion here, we are using a motorized tool, and you can see how beautifully the bone plates are moving out and allowing the implant to settle in. So you have to be really slow when you are putting in your implant. And we are going to place a subcrestal implant. The first implant is done. You can see how the plate is being pushed in this case. And this is how we go in with the second implant. And if you carefully notice on the video, I'll just zoom it for you. We can see that the labial bone is completely giving way for the implant. And we are able to place 2 implants of 4 millimeter diameter each in a bone which was of 4 millimeters. So that is the beauty of doing a ridge split with piezo. We can see good amount of bleeding, and if you can see now, you can see how the plate has been pushed out. There has been no fracture, and these areas which you find in between, if you want, you can do a bone grafting procedure. You can see both the implants in with a close-up, and the amount of expansion which you have seen here is great. Now this is how the bone grafting procedure was done. It is very important that in a case like this, you select what kind of an implant you are going to put when you have done a good split. It is important for us to decide what kind of an implant has to be placed. So you have all these options, all of them are good, but when you are doing a good ridge split and contouring, I would recommend you to use an active implant in cases like these. Another procedure, which was a very complicated procedure, because the patient gave us a history wherein this is the sinus area, The patient already has a couple of implants which were done by me long back. Now he wants to get this area restored. Now, when you closely look onto this area, I would just magnify it for you. When you closely look at this area, you see that the amount of bone which we have is just 1.5 to 2 millimeters. That means I will not be able to place an implant here immediately. The other problem here in this case is the patient has been a heavy smoker for almost 35 to 40 years. What do I expect when I do a sinus augmentation procedure for a smoker patient? So when you do an augmentation procedure or a sinus procedure for a smoker patient, it is very important to understand that the sinus mucosa, the Schneiderian membrane for this patient is going to be really hard, really taut. The mucosa is not easy to lift up. So that is what is an important consideration. And while trying to do it with your hand instruments, sometimes it becomes really difficult because the hand instruments, they tend to push in mucosa and there are chances of tear. So you can see the residual bone height. We have absolutely low bone height. The coronal section shows you around 1.5 to 2 millimeters of bone in this area. This is the clinical site which we are going to use. You raise a trapezoidal flap. So this is the first outline which we are going to create. You can see the outline here. When you see this outline, there is a squarish outline which we have created to make a window because we need to augment the site to have at least 2 to 3 implants in this position. So you need a huge window. You need to graft up the entire site to prepare it for the next session of placement of an implant. So this is how we start. You can see that we are trying to feel the bone is slightly moving. The areas where I am so close to the membrane, I cannot use anything other than a diamond tip because it is only the diamond tip which will not damage the membrane. So you can see that half of the site is exposed, and for the other part, we are going to use this tip and clear off the site. Now you can see bleeding all around. I can see that we are able to push the bony window. This is how the entire window looks after you have detached the window bone. Now we are going to use the elephant foot tip. Please see carefully as to how this tip is being used. What you can see in the video is that the tip, I am not pushing it in, not more than 1.5 millimeters. This tip is not sharp, rounded all over, and is helping me to detach the membrane from the bony area. You ask the patient to breathe in, and you can see that very less amount of movement is noticed here because the mucosa is very, very tight, right? This is how the elephant foot tip is being used. And now we are coming on to the UL1 tip, and we are going to use that UL1 tip to elevate the sinus. This is at an angle where we are trying to detach the membrane. I'm using a 30-degree angulation, almost 30-degree angulation tip, and trying to detach the membrane all over. Why am I trying to detach the membrane all over? Is because this is a very tight mucosa. As the patient is a smoker, I've already told you, once we start seeing the movement, you will see how thick the mucosa is. Now we are shifting to a 90-degree tip to lift up the inferior border of the sinus. This is how the tip is angled. You have to always make sure that the sharp end of the instrument of the tip is always in contact with the bone. We do not let this loose inside the sinus cavity. So you have to be constantly in contact with the bone. You can see how we are lifting up the membrane using a hand instrument. The patient is constantly breathing in and out so that it is easier for us. And you can now see that the membrane is really, it is difficult to lift up the membrane here. So we are using a combination of the piezo tool and the hand instruments. And this video will clearly show you how thick the membrane is. So we are going to lift that up, and now you can see that the membrane is lifted to an adequate amount. We are good to go ahead and place our augmentation bone substitute. So that is what I was trying to tell you, that when you are very close to a sinus situation like this, and the membrane is taut, any kind of excess force will immediately tear the membrane. There is no flexibility in the membrane. There is where your diamond tips and the piezo tool comes to, a rescue for you. So we put in our bone graft, condense the graft inside, completely pack the inferior surface. We are not out fracturing the wall. What we are doing is an in fracture of the wall, and that is going to act as our cortical floor in the next stage. Packing the xenograft here, covering it up with a good resorbable collagen membrane, closing it up with polyamide sutures. Another case similar. So when you see the membrane in this case, you can very well visualize that how tough it was, the other membrane, and how simple is doing with this kind of a membrane, which is a non-smoker's membrane, very flexible, easily movable, right? A case where you pull in your, there is a tooth which requires extraction here, and we are going to extract and wait for a while, open up the site, and start doing the piezosurgical procedure, lifting up the membrane. What you can see here, very clearly, you can see the membrane, which we are going to lift up. And with minimal damage. See, when I'm talking about this site, this is a single tooth site, right? We do not have a huge area. It is just a single tooth site. So you need very, very precise instruments to deal with a single tooth site. So when you're dealing with a single tooth site, you require your piezosurgical unit with small tips so that you can do the entire procedure. In this procedure, we are going to lift up the membrane, what you can see on the left side, and place an implant simultaneously into the position. And this is what we see post-operatively. A scan after around 6 months of time will show you good amount of bone which has been lifted up and the implant into position. Then we are going to follow it up with our prosthetic procedures. What you see inside the line here is the cortical bone which we infractured That is another advantage of doing an in-fracture. You can see your tissue cuff by customizing it and the final prosthesis. Another very important indication of using a piezo surgery for dentists is retrieval of the screws and implant fractures. Cases like these, this was a very complicated case. I'll not go into the details of the case, but what I would like to show you here is this is how the patient presented. He had multiple fractured implants all over, and when you see these fractured implants, they have been into position in place for almost now approximately 12 to 15 years, and now the implant has fractured. So it is really tough to remove this implant because the implant is quite well integrated into the bone. So this is what we see when we raise a flap. You can see the poor condition of the implants which have fractured completely, and we are going to use a trephine to remove it. So that is what I was trying to, I will be showing you. When you remove an implant with a trephine, you can see the amount of bone which comes out. So this is on one side of these two implants. We placed other implants, completed the case. On the other side, on the left side, there was another fracture. So we had to retrieve this implant, and you can see the layer of bone surrounding the implant completely. So this is something which no dentist is going to feel good about. It is really painful because we all understand to develop such kind of bone, to regenerate bone with this quality and quantity is next to impossible. And we know that that requires a lot of money, a lot of effort, a good skill set to get onto this kind of regenerative procedure. So these were the older times when we used to use trephine to remove the failed implants. Now, when you want to remove this is the procedure which we did. Placed another implant, did a positioning. So when I am going to do an implant retrieval with a trephine, you have already seen it. So implant retrieval fractures like this, now we use only piezoelectric surgery to remove these implants, because piezoelectric surgery, you will see for your own that this was the fractured part of the implant which came out as soon as we opened the flap. And we are going to use piezo surgery here. I'm using a hemisection tip. You can see a good amount of saline which is coming in and allowing the area to be bloodless. So we are using the hemisection small tip here, and we are going to go inside, cutting off the bony contact between the implant threads. Yeah, definitely a lot of you will have a question as to what happens to this tip. This tip has to be replaced because now it is in contact with the metal, and that needs to be replaced. So after doing guttering around the bone, we are just using a small beaked forceps and trying to rotate the implant in the anti-clockwise direction so that the implant can be pulled out, preventing bone loss here. I don't want to cut any bone, and you can see that when we are trying to remove the implant out of the site, there is absolutely no bone attached to the implant. So that is the beauty of using a piezo surgical unit. The earlier case which I had shown you had a tremendous amount of bone loss, tremendous amount of bone which was cut by using a trephine, because we always need to use a larger trephine than the implant to cut off the bone and take it out. In situations like this, you can see how easily using piezo surgery hemisection tip, we could take out the implant which was fractured and the site is ready to get in another implant, and a lot of good host bone is already available. So this is a very major breakthrough in implant retrieval mechanisms. This is how the implant surface looks. So you can see very clearly there is very minimal amount of bone which is attached. Is majorly the blood and some amount of soft tissue. And the site is very open and clear for us to re-enter and place an implant at the same time. A very difficult case to perform. You can see 3 implants in a row getting fractured. These 3 implants all fractured from the coronal part. Half of their screws are also fractured and inside the implant. This is the sagittal section. You can see how the implants are fractured. There is no other option but to retrieve these implants. We will have to trim off the bone and take it out. So that is what we do here. So what you see here in the video is that there were 3 implants which were placed close to each other, had fractured. And when we are, if at all I was using a trephine here, I would have degenerated the entire bone from this area and would not have been left to, place another implant here. So it is very important that you use your small hemisection tips, because these implants were not placed correctly and there was excess load. Probably the occlusion was not right, and the suffering of the patient is huge. So what we are doing here is using a hemisection tip, going ahead slowly and trying to preserve as much bone as possible. One implant is already out, so you can see the site. If at all I want to use a trephine to remove it, I will definitely kill all the bone which is present here. There would be no bone left for me to get another implant into site. So once you are almost till the apical 1/3 of your trimming with the piezo, we are going to use a bone forceps, extraction forceps, and you can see what minimal amount of bone loss we are seeing here. Now, the third implant, which I am going to show you now, is a very tricky implant, because this implant is right at the floor of sinus. So if I'm using a trephine in this position, I will be cutting off the sinus floor and will be creating an iatrogenic oroantral fistula. So we don't want to do that. So what is important here is that we are slowly using our hemisection tip, cutting off the bone around so that we get a good grip onto the implant, and we can use our small beaked forceps to rotate the implant anti-clockwise and pull it out. That way we will not be damaging the floor of the sinus, and will not be creating an iatrogenic, the fistula there. So 3 implants placed very close, though they were not placed correctly. Unfortunately, that is the reason the implants here fractured. And we are going to retrieve the third one also. The implants are very firm and stable. Unfortunately, these implants which fracture are very well anchored by the bone. I mean, it's very difficult to take these implants out. So this is how the small tip is being used to do the guttering around the implant. And we are now going to use some more amount of bone cutting onto the mesial side. We don't want to go distal because distally the height of sinus floor is very, very low. So good amount of irrigation, because when you are doing this, there is a lot of heat which is generated when you are moving around the junction of your implant and bone. So you are trying to slowly rotate it anti-clockwise, some buccolingual movement as a single rooted tooth, and the implant is retrieved with a minor loss of bone on one side of it. So it is very important to understand the utilization of different tips. And there are a lot of other tips which are available with the company for different indications for block grafting. Because of the the paucity of time, I cannot discuss with you all the different indications of a piezo-surgical unit. But yes, today we were supposed to talk about a ridge augmentation, ridge split procedure, and a sinus augmentation procedure. So we saw a couple of sinus augmentations with implant, without implant, a huge side and a small single tooth side. We saw a ridge split procedure for the maxillary posterior segment. And most importantly, we saw the retrieval of implants, which since I have got since the time I've started using your piezo surgical unit, I have never used a Trifine again to remove my implants, because it's really painful to see the amount of bone loss. Learning for all of us is always a continuous process. I have been associated and trained with a lot of good people in dentistry. A few of them I would like to thank when I do my presentations are the people who have really changed the way we think about implant dentistry. And the World Academy of Ultrasonic Piezoelectric Surgery is an academy where they conduct conferences and they talk only about piezo surgery and growth factors and their utilization in implant dentistry. So what you see here are all the people who I would like to thank: Dr. Joseph Khan, Morris Salama, Dr. Istvan Urban, Craig Mish. They have been instrumental in dealing with complicated procedures. Sir Daniel Boozer, and I had been fortunate enough to do a course with Dr. Carl Mish when he was there, a great person. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much for being there. And if there are any questions, we will be taking them up now. So these are my contact details. If you want to connect to me, you have my email ID and the Facebook account, which is an easier way to connect. Thank you so much. I will be taking up the doubts now. I have received a full list of doubts from Eddie, and I will be sharing with you the answers. So the first question from Sharon is, what do you think about hydrolifting for sinus lift? Yes, of course, hydrolifting is a time-tested technique for sinus augmentation, for a closed sinus augmentation, an indirect procedure. When you have around 4.5, 5 millimeters of residual bone, that would be the correct indication to use a hydraulic sinus augmentation procedure. But when you do a direct sinus augmentation, you require a piezo unit. For indirect sinus augmentation also, you can use your diamond tip and the implant osteotomy tip, which can be used. How many times one tip can be used for ridge split? This is the question from Dr. Muhammad Athar Khan. See, it actually depends on what is the bone density you are working on. So when we talk about a ridge split procedure, we usually indicate this split procedure for D3, D4 bones, not exactly for a D1 bone, because D1 bone is a very cortical bone. To split bone, you require cancellous part. You require a trabecular part when you want to split the bone. So that is very important. You can use these tips. I have been using it for maybe more than 10 to 12 surgeries. But if you are encountering D1 bone, or you are using the same tip for harvesting a block bone from chin area or the ramus area, probably you need to change your tips faster. So if you feel that your bone is not getting trimmed by the tip, or you require a lot of pressure, so that is the time where you need to go ahead and change your tip. If your tip comes in contact with metallic surfaces like implant retrieval, you definitely have to throw that tip and change to a new tip, because once the tip is in contact with titanium, which is a very strong material, the tip loses its cutting efficiency. I have another question. Ridge split in posterior maxilla will lead to oroantral fistula formation in patient with pneumatic sinus. See, ridge split procedure in posterior maxilla can only be done when you have adequate amount of bone height, right? So if you do not have an adequate amount of bone height, you are not supposed to do a procedure of ridge split there. So 10 millimeters is what the text says. The 10 millimeters is the minimum bone which I should be having to do a split procedure. When you're close to the sinus, do an augmentation first, lift up the membrane. Once you lift up the membrane and do the augmentation, then you can try doing your ridge split procedure, so that you are safe and you are not perforating the sinus membrane. The next question here is from Kong Lek Lin. Do you leave the chunk of bone attached to sinus membrane while lifting and not remove it? Yes, so this is a very, very good question. So when we do a sinus augmentation procedure, a direct sinus augmentation procedure, there are two ways to deal with it. Either you outfracture the bony window, or you infracture the bony window. I personally majorly do an infracture, because that cortical bone piece which I'm putting in is going to act as a barrier, number one. Why I need a barrier there is because when you understand the physiology of the Schneiderian membrane is an osteoclastic membrane. When I say osteoclastic membrane, the Schneiderian membrane has a tendency to eat up bone. So if I am giving up my outer window, the wall, the bony window, if I'm pushing it up with the membrane, whatever new bone graft particles or PRF I have added there is going to be safe from the Schneiderian membrane. So it is not going to pneumatize any further. So another advantage of pushing it in is that when you're trying to pull out the bony window, there are chances of membrane rupture. Why there are chances of membrane rupture? Because there might be some strong fibers there. If the patient is a smoker, it is further difficult to remove a window. So instead of removing it, it is better to infracture, because that is also going to act as my new sinus floor. That is another advantage of that. The next question is, which piezo surgical unit I use? I use a piezo surgical unit from a Woodpecker DTE, that is a 60-watt unit, and now we also have a 70-watt unit. because these wattages are important in terms of power generation in your piezo units. The next question I have is, can you please mention the causes of implant fracture? Yes, these cases were referred cases to me. And as far as I can judge from the situation these patients arrived, occlusion was one of the reasons for implant fractures. In the first case where I had shown you, where I was removing the implant using a trephine, in that case, probably the implants were in function for a long duration of time, and the patient was a complete denture wearer for the lower, for the mandibular arch. Now, as soon as the patient got implants in the mandibular arch, the amount of load started increasing onto the maxillary implants, which were not well planned and placed. That is the reason those implants fractured. The last one case where we saw a single implant fracture was typically a case of all-on-4 fracture, where an all-on-4 procedure was done for the maxilla. The opposing dentition is a natural dentition. And in all-on-4 procedure, the implant used in the distal side was a 3.5 millimeters implant diameter, which is a strict no for an all-on-4 procedure. You can still try and use a 3.5 diameter implant in the anterior straight implant zone, but not in the distal tilt. You require minimum diameter of 4 millimeters when you want to do a procedure like this. The next question is, do you use CBCT to evaluate your post-surgical implant placement? So yes, absolutely. You have seen a few cases where I have shown you a post-operative CBCT view to show what exactly is the scenario when we do a CBCT. For other cases where we do not do a simultaneous implant, we just put in bone graft. We also use a trephine in the second stage to take out some bone and check for the histology to see how good the bone formation is in that area. The next question which I have is, do you replace the tip after guttering around the implant every time after implant retrieval? Yes, of course, because once you are using this tip and that tips come in contact with the implant surface, the efficacy of the tip is totally out, it's totally low. So when the efficiency of the tip is low, it is it is not advised to use it on the bone again, because then you will have to apply a lot of pressure. The cutting efficiency is going to be low, and when you apply pressure onto it, we need to understand that it is going to generate heat, and one of the primary purposes of using a piezoelectric unit is that heat should not be generated. The next question which I have here is, can you explain the risks or precautions involved in retrieval of an implant which has been placed using a direct sinus lift along with a graft procedure? A very good question, sir. It is very difficult to not create an oroantral fistula when you are trying to remove a fractured implant from such a site. So what I usually do, or what is documented, is that when you're trying to gutter around the implant, what we do is that you gutter only till half of the length of your implant, and then you slowly try to rotate it anti-clockwise and pull it out. The only way we can prevent any kind of a complication or a fistula here is that if you do not use your tip or the trephine to go into the complete depth, right? So if it goes into the complete depth, we are sure that fistula will be there. So it is important for us to retrieve this implant by using the piezo tip only till half of the section of the implant. So these are the questions which I received from the team, and I hope we have answered. There are a couple of other questions which I see here. that can we use PRF with xenograft alone without covering the membrane in sinus lifting? Yes, Dr. Mohammed, that can be done, but the purpose of a membrane has to be understood here. PRF is not a barrier membrane. PRF is going to help only in the soft tissue healing, and PRF is going to help in holding up the bone, in keeping up that scaffold. The purpose of using a barrier membrane in a sinus augmentation procedure is that you do not allow the fibroblast to come in from the soft tissue and enter into the bone. So if you do not want the fibroblast to come in from the tissue and enter into